And we welcome you into what is hopefully the first of many mini editions of the Fighting Saints Report. Jack Milewski, Jim Leitner here in these unprecedented, uncertain times right now. We haven't talked to you for a couple weeks now due to the craziness of everything going on, but we're trying to give a little bit of Fighting Saints content every single week just so we can keep the hockey spirit alive for as long as we're essentially shut-ins. So, Jim, thanks for joining me today. And I know we're just dying to talk hockey in some capacity because the last week, it seemed like a month, but the last week has been kind of wild here.
Yeah, it's unlike anything we've ever experienced. And, it's not just hockey, it's every sport. And, it's kind of, for most of us, anytime we have something going wrong in our lives, it seems like sports is always a great escape and something to kind of get your mind off of, feeling bad or anything that's, going wrong in your lives. And, now we don't even have sports. So it's kind of a unprecedented time and just a real crazy time. But it's our job to kind of come up with some ideas and kind of get to keep people entertained and just talk hockey. It's a good, refreshing time to just talk hockey.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was craziness to end the season for the Fighting Saints. And again, it seemed a lot longer than it's actually been because of how rapidly things have shifted every single day. But we were broadcasting a game Wednesday night against Waterloo when we found out that the NBA was suspending their season indefinitely. That's when we kind of got our first sense that something might be happening soon with the USHL. But the Fighting Saints still hopped on a bus right after that game, drove to Youngstown, practiced on Youngstown's ice, and then I want to say seconds after Oliver David blew the whistle to end practice, it came up on my Twitter feed that the USHL had suspended play and the Fighting Saints had to head back home. But it was wild. In less than 24 hours, you can go from playing a hockey game, shutting out a rival to tie yourself at the top of the Cowbell Cup standings and move into second place overall in the USHL, to not even having a season. It was just a crazy 24-hour period right there. We didn't know at that time that the season was officially over, but at least to start the ball rolling and suspend the season was kind of crazy.
Yeah, and I remember talking to Oliver after that game, and we talked about the NBA being canceled or put on hold, and it kind of was almost a deal like, geez, is it even worth getting on the bus? Because you almost know you're coming back home, and so it was kind of an uncertain time, and it's just what a crazy stretch for the Fighting Saints, because you go from such a great high, like you said, shutting out Waterloo, and Waterloo's obviously the best team in the Western Conference right now, and obviously a big rival and a team that the Fighting Saints have struggled with over the last several years. And a great win. You clinch the season series against them. You shut them out.
Mm-hmm.
Just probably one of the real good wins of the season. So you're on that high, and then, like you said, wasn't even 24 hours later, and you're wondering what's going wrong. But I think one of the kind of the cool things for the Fighting Saints is that, you hate to say you made a bus trip out to Youngstown for nothing, and it kind of seems that way, but the good thing for the Fighting Saints is they had that bus trip together. You knew that the season was going to be put on pause, and at least the guys had an opportunity to have that one last bus trip together and enjoy that. And even though at that time you were just saying that the season was put on pause, I think a lot of people probably had an idea that there was, it probably wasn't going to come back, or that it was eventually going to be canceled. So, at least those guys had that moment, or that bus trip together where they could, have a good time with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as we try to, it's so tough to recap a season or even figure out where to start with a season that was never concluded in some way, shape, or form. Whether your team doesn't make the playoffs, the regular season ends, your season is over. But then if your team makes the playoffs, whenever you're eliminated from the playoffs, the season is officially over. And I think it's kind of a tough pill to swallow, to know that the season is officially over, but this team, if the season was still going, had a lot more to accomplish. And You don't want to dwell on negatives because there were so many positives you could take out of the season. But it's just right now it seems like it's a lot of what ifs. What if the season had gone? Would we have seen the first Fighting Saint in Tier 1 history in Reese Gaber to score 40 goals? I think so,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
What if the season had gone on? Where would this team have ranked in terms of total points and wins in the Tier 1 era? Probably right behind 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
But I think the easier thing to do, or not easier, but the better thing to do is kind of remember a team for how good they were, whether they would have won it all or not. We know for a fact already that this was one of the best teams that we had seen in Tier 1 history in Dubuque's time.
No doubt about it. And, I think Oliver kind of made a good point. He said, usually the team that wins the last game of the regular season is the champion. So, and that was the Fighting Saints. They won the last game played. So, kind of a funny look. But yeah, I think, you look back on this team and, as you said, it's not a complete story. But I do think this team ranks right up there with the two teams that won the Clark Cup, the 2010-11 team and the 12-13 team. I thought in terms of scoring depth, in terms of solid defensive play, I think they were right there with those teams. And I think even the goaltending might have been even better than those two cup winning teams. So, I think there's no question about it. This was one of the best teams that the Fighting Saints have seen in the 10 years since they've come back to the USHL. And, I think, the only thing that's kind of stood in their way, obviously Chicago was, a team that really ran away with everything pretty much all season long. But, I liked the way this team was trending, and I think maybe you get a couple pieces back for the stretch run in the playoffs. And who knows, they might be able to overtake Chicago and win the whole thing. And, I think they were right there with Chicago the times that they played them. And, they were a good quality team. So who knows what was going to happen in the playoffs. And, but I like this team's chemistry. I like this team's makeup. I like the way they responded to adversity. They did have some adversity where, things weren't exactly going their way, and they bounced back. You look at that stretch in January where they struggled a little bit. And, after that, I thought they were a better team. I thought they were a much better team and much more poised to make a run at the stretch run and in the playoffs. And it wasn't a team that kind of folded the tents. So, they learned from their mistakes. They got better. And, I think they were certainly one of the very elite teams in the USHL. And it would have been fun to see where they could have ended up.
Yeah, and we'll keep these weekly segments brief because, quite honestly, with no hockey going on, we can't have a lot to talk about. But it'll run out very quickly, and then we'll just be making idiots of ourselves by minute 20. But the other thing about this team that I wanted to address before we sign off for the first time is the fact that whether you know it while you're watching it, you really know it when the season's over, is that you were witnessing some of the greats of all time in a Dubuque Fighting Saints uniform. Obviously, Reese Gaber was setting records this year. He's one that comes to mind, but Ty and Dylan Jackson, another pair that was lighting up the stat sheet that unfortunately for them are just going to fall a couple points short of 100 on their USHL career, but there's no doubt they would have hit that milestone. But for the fans that were watching this year's team, you saw individually a couple of the all-time greats, and then collectively, Oliver David said it himself, and the stats back it up. This was the deepest team that Dubuque had ever had in the 10 years that they've played in the Tier 1 era.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, you had just looking at the roster right now, every single guy made big contributions at one point or another. I mean, everybody was involved. You look, even the defensemen may not have had the greatest stats, but they were all shutdown guys, and they were never, you never had the sense that there was anybody that you sent over the boards that was a liability, or there was never a guy that was kind of a weak length. Yeah, I don't think you had one. So it was kind of fun to see a team that was as deep as this and as strong as this, and that's why they were able to compete as hard as they did, and why they were right there with the best teams in the USHL. And I I agree with him. I think there was, and another thing is I think he saw a lot of guys make a lot of improvement over the course of the year, and they didn't get stagnant. They were always working. They were always improving, and that's why I think this team was kind of hitting its stride and hitting its peak at the most important time of the season, and that's just as fun as watching a team win, is to see a group of guys really work and hit its stride, when it really mattered the most.
So as we wrap up this mini show and we wrap up the 2019-2020 season, however reluctantly we are to wrap up the season, just again, memories wise, because right now sports, that's really all we have for the foreseeable future is memories, reminiscing, whether it's 20 years ago or whether it was just about this season, whatever it may be. You're going to be thinking back on a lot of sports memories, I think, over the next couple months. But what are a couple things, maybe specific moments, that are going to stick out to you when you think back on the 2019-2020 season?
Well, I'm gonna go with there's probably several of them, but Reese Gaber's patented move on a breakaway, I think, is the one that really stands out to me in terms of, he made that move, where he fakes to the goaltender's right and then tucks it in on his forehand. I mean, he did that so many times. It was just kind of the one thing that I'll always remember about Reese Gaber, and that's that. And I probably just watching Eric Portillo and net, he was just so big and just just made some unbelievable saves and just covered so much of the net. And I think for my money, he's the best goaltender we've seen in Dubuque. And those two memories. But I think a lot of it is, it's hard to pin me down. You always do this to me, pin me down on these things. But I mean,
that's the perk of being the host, is I can ask the questions and then just sit back and watch you flounder.
Yeah, but I think too, and I mean, beyond the things on the ice is, you and I, we get to see things, down in the tunnel after the game, and the way the boys really celebrated, and the way they, how happy they were for each other. And, you hear some of the locker room celebrations, and, when a guy hits a milestone or a guy scores a first goal, or, those kind of moments where the public really doesn't get to see them very often, but, we're kind of privy to seeing those things, and just how the team really bonded and got together, and they were really one big collective group, and the way they celebrated milestones and achievements, and it was such a tight-knit group, and I think that's one of the things that I'll really remember as well.
Yeah, I've got specific hockey memories. I mean, in general, I think the one that I'm glad that we got before the season ended was Hockey for All, being able to see that come together again, and for the second year in a row, having that night be the largest attended game of the season was pretty awesome. And the largest crowd Dubuque had at any game since 2017, over 3,100. That was pretty cool to see. But the three hockey memories that are going to stick out are the two games in Waterloo. To beat them by 6 goals twice at their place is something that no team had ever done in the Tier 1 era, and Dubuque did it in back-to-back game visits to the Young Arena. Number 2, I think, was when Reese Gaber set the all-time Tier 1 goal record, and that was in the second to last game Dubuque played in this regular season. In my opinion, the best game of the regular season that the Fighting Saints participated in. Even though they lost, that was a preview of what we were going to see in the playoffs between Dubuque and Chicago, that 6-5 overtime loss. And to see Gaber at least hit that milestone was awesome. And then number 3, throwing it back towards the beginning of the season, but a hat trick by a defenseman had never been done before in the Fighting Saints Tier 1 history, and to call Braden Doyle's hat trick against Muskegon was pretty cool. So, I mean, there's so many memories from a team that had it all going, but I think those are 3 that continue to stick in my mind as we kind of recap the season a week removed. Again, it seems like a month with how crazy everything has been and how rapidly it's all unfolded, but it's really only been about a week since the official word came down that there would be no more USHL hockey, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I actually have the Saints roster in front of me, and just looking at all the names, and you talk about the memories, and there's one memory for every guy. You look at each name, and you're like, oh, that, remember when this guy did that? Or, I mean, there's so many great memories. I mean, there's 20 some memories that you could really jump out at you. But that's what made this team so special, is that every guy did something. Every guy stepped up and did something really special. And when you put together a group like that where everybody does something special, then at the end of the season you're going to have an outstanding record, and you're going to have a chance to compete for a championship. And so like you said, there were so many great memories from this team, and on and off the ice. It was a lot of fun to watch. And these guys set the bar pretty high for next year. And hopefully we can see something similar next year with some outstanding players, some new players, and some guys coming back.
Yeah, there's still that element of finality that always encompasses the end of a season, but just not the finality that I think anyone was hoping for or wanting with this season. But it's still good to get, I think, the thoughts out, just talking about it. That's always nice to try to recap a season and at least kind of honor a team that was as good as they were. And we'll continue to talk about favorite moments from this season. Hopefully we can bring on some players and talk to them about their thoughts for the season. But for the time being, we will sign off today. Jim, again, thanks for joining me, and we'll hopefully make this a Monday routine so we can continue to keep some Fighting Saints and Fighting Saints Report hockey in our lives for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, but hopefully we provide a little bit of an escape for fans out there who are getting bored with reruns and stuff that's not having live sports on TV. And it's always fun to have these opportunities to talk about hockey and really talk about a great group of kids, and a group that I know I'm going to remember for a long time, and a really special group. And like you said, it's fun to get together and talk, and maybe just a little bit of escape for the fans out there. And hopefully we can continue to do this and provide some a sunny day for some people who are going through some dark times right now.
Yeah, we can't go the rerun route with the Fighting Saints Report because we don't even have the quality that we're willing to rerun. Plus, then everyone would revisit all the hockey predictions that are undoubtedly
please
wrong.
Don't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Please don't dig those up.
We'll keep those buried deep in some vault far away from wherever anyone is trying to look. But for the time being, I'm Jack Milewski for Jim Leitner signing off, and we'll talk to you next Monday.